In the previous videos, I've demonstrated different versions of Voyant from the United Kingdom, from Canada, the US, Ireland, and we've stayed mostly focused on the core functionality. In this video, we're going to focus a little bit more about some of the international flavor that we have. One of the interesting abilities of Voyant is that we've built it modular so that one, we can go to a new jurisdiction quite quickly, as we're planning on launching in Australia in Q4 of 2020. But then we also have lots of different features that we can then use in any of our versions. It takes us about 90 to 120 days to build a new jurisdiction, but then we also have multi-jurisdictional capabilities. The version I'm working in right now that you see on your screen is actually called the international version. And the international version is interesting in that it allows you to sort of create and set your own tax regimes. And so essentially what you can do is decide what your viewable currency is. So anything we enter into the system, we're going to roll up and we'll view it into this currency. So in this case, the Singapore dollar. It can also set certain pieces of income tax, dividends, interest thresholds, capital gains. Now here, what we're doing is we're saying we've exposed some of our underlying functionality that we have in Voyant and said, look, rather than us trying to figure out your taxes, you can essentially enter in your own effective rates for your jurisdiction and then reuse these tax regimes as you go forward. So Voyant actually has users in Singapore. We have users in Malaysia. We haven't done a lot of marketing in these places, but it's a place where we've actually spent time so that they understand, hey, look, I can use this version. A lot of them work with expats, so maybe they use the UK version and the international version as well. But here it allows you then to essentially set up different items in different systems. And then built into Voyant itself, if I go back and go to one of my own client plans here, we can see in terms of Alexander Hamilton, everything's in the Singaporean dollar. His tax regime is built in terms of we've set it for the tax regime. As we look at every item in the system, here, let's look at a US account. So in this case, I can look at something like a US account, look at a balance, and see that actually the way it was originally entered, it was entered in USD, but we're showing it in Singapore dollars. So the system has currency conversion built into it. We have quite a large library of elements that we can grab on the currency conversion side, and then we can set it from there. This can include any type of investment in the system. So if I was to go in and look up savings and investments, pick an investment account. Now, one of the things you'll notice in the system is that we've become very standard here. One of the interesting things universally that we've built into our solution is if when you really get down to it, there's tax-free, there's taxable, and there's tax-deferred. Everything is a variation of those globally. What the rules are around a bit different, and we've taken the rules and packaged them different for each jurisdiction. But in the core of the system, those are the basis of things. So you can see we have taxable, tax-free, deferred, and then things like employer-sponsored plans. So all of those elements here we can look at. And I could go here and then say, look, if I want to, let me pick a currency that this is in. I can use feeds from other organizations like Morningstar and things of the sort, get the value in today's dollars in any currency, and then can convert it to one of the currencies inside our system that we have in place. So we can do all those currency conversions in any market. We could expose these and do expose them in the UK market, in the Canadian market. We can work in our markets, we can have the currency conversions built in and have those discussions. So it's an added feature that's there that we allow in the international version is a separate version we have in place. A lot of times we introduce the international version of jurisdiction, and then we might decide, do we want to go into that jurisdiction? Now, part of that discussion as well is this idea of language and what do we do in different languages. And a couple of our versions, we've already exposed the ability to different languages. And here it's actually quite interesting. Every item in the system that you can see has a unique tag in it. So it's very easy for us to switch the language on it. In this version that we're working in, when I go to preferences, I can here just change the language in the UI. It's no big server build. The language actually is configurable based on each group that we work with. And we have found this, that in a majority of our cases, each large firm we work with has a different idea for certain words and certain contexts. So we can customize the language. So here we can see in the background, we've actually changed to French Canadian, and this is actually French Canadian that's maintained. You'll even see that the dollar symbol gets done differently. This is French Canadian that's actually maintained by Toronto Dominion in partnership with us. All of our large Canadian enterprises have different views on words they use for marketing reasons and things of the sort. So here we've easily switched to French Canadian. If I go back here and switch, I can even go in this case to simplified Chinese. And so here we have Chinese built in the system, and you can see the system handles Chinese as well. This again is maintained by Toronto Dominion, and it's switchable in the UI. The system can recognize that a user, for example, is in Quebec and knows to start in French, and then the advisor can decide to switch off to English if they prefer, but the languages themselves are switchable as part of the internationalization exists. And again, this is available throughout our system. So Snapshot is available multilingual, the game is available multilingual. All of these libraries that we're using and how we put these things together give Voyant this international flavor that allows us to work across the globe quite efficiently and then reuse the items we build in one location in another location. So one of the interesting parts of Voyant is we'll release a feature. Say it's something like stock options, share units and stock options, if you will, executive compensation as a whole. As that was released, it became available in all of our jurisdictions. Now it has to be tweaked a little based on the rules, but the underlying library and core is there, including the idea when we snap the infrastructure. Yes, it's multilingual. Yes, it's multi-currency. We can do all the FX pieces that exist along the way. And it becomes a very powerful piece of our discussion that we then use in terms of looking at the next market or servicing smaller groups inside of larger enterprises.